guys, and welcome to the Fish Room. I'm Rachel O'Leary, and it's time for a Tuesday tip. But with this new year, I want to try a new schedule. You see, as my business has grown, it's gotten harder and harder to make sure I'm getting out quality Tuesday tips for you guys. So I think I'm going to probably move those to Thursday and do a more typical day in the life of Fish Pimp on Tuesdays. But we'll have to see. I have a lot of things planned for you guys this year and a lot of travel. So one of my biggest goals for this upcoming year is to make sure that as I'm doing all these travels to lecture and attend events, that I get to meet up with a lot of my friends and fellow hobbyists around the country and get some first-person information for you guys. I had a great time when I just visited Joey, and I think one of my favorite parts was just getting his perspective on the hobby. So I want to continue that theme and really make sure that I'm interviewing different folks from around the world that are really geeks just like me. So I thought today, since there's so many new subscribers, that I'd go around and just remind you guys of which aquariums in the Fish Room are my personal aquariums, and just tell you a little bit about why I'm keeping some of the fish I'm keeping. If you're new here, you may not know I operate a really busy online business out of my basement here, and the vast majority of my aquariums are stocked with fish that are for sale. That being said, I also am a terrible hoarder and have my own personal fish everywhere. But for today, I'm going to go around and show you my favorite of my personal tanks and just tell you a little bit about some of my interests in the hobby, as well as my goals for the new year. I have so many things planned for you guys. I also wanted to mention that I will be live streaming every Friday, so please make sure that you are subscribed and you have that notification bell on. I'm going to be mixing it up as to what time on Friday so that more of you can participate. Anyway, let's get started and look at some fish. So as many of you know who've been around for a while, this is Captain Cranky Pants, and he is, well, gosh, he's got to be close to 12 years old now, and he's one of my personal mascots. And he is ancient and imperfect, but I love him. And he is in this, he's an Oscar, a wild Oscar, and he's in this aquarium with a form-line Pimladella. Now, I originally got this fish in order to try and get my husband interested in fish keeping, but that ended up being a losing battle. He is extremely supportive of all the things I do down here, but fish keeping just isn't for everyone. Now, Captain Cranky Pants is in a 75-gallon with this catfish, Whiskey, who's a 4-line Pimladella. Whiskey was taken in as a rescue from a local friend whose aquarium burst. Above Captain Cranky Pants is a 55-gallon mixed species aquarium housing Leatacara dorsigera, which is a dwarf cichlid, these guys right here. And I am keeping those because, quite honestly, they've been one of the few dwarf cichlids I haven't been able to raise fry from. They spawn pretty frequently, but they just eat their eggs before I get to them and have all in all been a very frustrating species. I've tried them a few times over the years. So right now they're in a multi-purpose aquarium. This is a 55-gallon that is set up for breeding. I've shown you guys this aquarium before when I was doing my high Pancistrus setup, and that's because there's also high Pancistrus contradens, which are a really cool meat-eating, obviously spotty pleco. They get to about 5 inches. Now there's also a bunch of other random fish in here. I went through, I go through phases of my fish keeping of what I'm interested in. I went through a pretty heavy catfish phase in recent years, so I have a lot of leftover oddball Coreodorus, Aspidorus, and just really neat catfish everywhere. In this aquarium as well is a breeding group of Ancistrus, as you can see right here. There's also a bunch of random whiptails and just some odds and ends of fish that won't really hinder the breeding of the others. I'm really hoping that these guys are going to be breeding in no time because they're the ones I'm most interested in breeding in this aquarium. But high Pancistrus can take quite a long time to mature. Now these guys are good and fat and ready to go. They just have to set up shop. The next personal aquarium is my Crebensis tank, and I've shown you guys this tank, and it's really not much to look at. Originally, this aquarium was one of my discus tanks, but over the years I got out of discus, and now it just sort of holds all these geriatric fish that I've had for as long as 12 years. For instance, the neon tetras in this aquarium moved here with us from our last house, and they are almost 13 years old at this point. There's some Siamese algae eaters, some ancient cherry barbs, some Odessa barbs, random cories, emperor tetras, cribensis, and really just all sorts of things in here. And it's sort of my tank for misfit fish. So if I have leftovers or oddballs, I just toss them in this aquarium to live out their life. It's a retirement community, if you will. And it's generally really peaceful. It's planted with some odds and ends of plants that I had left over from here and there. And I have caves set up on both ends in order to disperse aggression with the cribensis, who do still quite frequently spawn. Next is this little tiny planted tank. Now this is one that I set up because I set up, oh gosh, probably 5 or 6 years ago, because I realized, you know, that while I kept plants in all my aquariums, I'd never really deliberately planted anything. So I guess you could say this is my first planted tank. Now, I've been keeping plants for way longer than that, but this is one of the few times that I actually utilize substrate. In this aquarium are my blue shrimp. In this aquarium are blue shrimp as well as my crystal red colony. And you can see some very, very drunk crypt parva. Now, one of the things I want to do this year is actually break down this aquarium, because this entire section of the fish room is being ill-utilized. There's a bunch of crap piled up and some small tanks, and I really think it would be better suited if I were to put in another rack here and be able to add maybe 10 more aquariums. Now, I think most of you know my Shelley Aquarium pretty well. This is just a 75-gallon Neolamprologus multifasciatus aquarium that has tons and tons of shells. It has a couple Cyprichromis, which are those sardine cichlids that are blue with the yellow tails. It has Synodontis lucipinus, as well as some Ancestris, and honestly a few random coolie loaches that I have no idea how they got in here. And they are breeding like mad. There is fry everywhere, and these fish I keep because honestly I just think they're really adorable, and watching their breeding strategies is exceptionally fascinating. They're really, really good parents, and they're just really fun to watch. Now, of course, if you've been around my channel for any length of time, you know about the big boys. In this aquarium, which is 7 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot, is a Cuban gar, a tropical gar, and 3 of these Polypterus and Lacari, and they are my favorite fish. I got these guys when they were all finger-sized, close to 10 years ago, and they're really just my favorite fish to watch. There's something magical about large predatory fish and their unique personalities. For instance, this tropical gar is the biggest fish in the aquarium, but he's like a big puppy dog. He actually seems to think that he's one of these Polypterus, often dogpiling with them and being relatively docile. Whereas this little Cuban, he's a nightmare. This guy, whenever I clean this aquarium, will absolutely try and bite me. And with their double rows of razor sharp teeth, I can assure you that is not a fun time. That being said, I'm really attached to the little jerk. And I can't wait to watch him grow up to his potential. Now, all of these fish are lifelong pets. Most of them will live 20 years or more. So it's a real investment in time, money, space, and energy to maintain them properly. However, with their primitive looks and unique behaviors, they are without a doubt my favorite fish in the fish room. Now the 150 Hill Stream. You guys watched me build this from the ground up. It was the very first tank I built when I started YouTube, and I absolutely love it. And even now, 2 years later, it's still only partially stocked. So one of my goals for this upcoming year is to get the fish I've always wanted for this aquarium so that I can show you guys a finished product. The plants are doing okay. That for some reason the bulbitis in here has decided it doesn't love it anymore. So another project I want to do this year is maybe remove some substrate and try some new strategies, add some new plants, and absolutely finish stocking. Right now it has red-bellied dace, rainbow shiner, Sewellio, gastromyazons, Borneo suckers, white clouds, cobitus loaches, all sorts of various little hill stream species, Sewellia, Chiaphyt, Danios, and just a real mishmash of species. And one of the goals for this upcoming year is to get the Stiphodons in here that I've always wanted. But you see, I wasn't in a big rush because I know 2 years sounds like a really long time to wait, but the species I want to add are all algae grazers. So it was really, really important to me to let this tank mature. And I know a lot of people think of maturity as being several months old, but for me, it's really a couple of years. It can be very difficult to supplement some of the grazers, so I wanted a really, really mature tank for them. I also hope to catch the Rhinogobius out of the aquarium this year so that I can set up a dedicated breeding project, because as you can see, they are absolutely stunning. Well, this aquarium is the Brooklyn Hardscape Aquarium, which they got for me for 20,000 subs, which seems like just yesterday, but it's been a bit, and the lights have died out. You can see that the emergent growth is doing really well. But all in all, the aquarium looks to be a bit of a mess. So one of the goals for this year is to completely redo this aquarium. And one of the things for the entire fish room that I need to do is replace my lights. You see, the fish room now is over 8 years old. And when I set it up, I utilized all these shop lights. Now at the time, you know, there wasn't really great LED technology. It was still super expensive and really just not worth it. So I went with shop lights, and they were a very economical way to light the fish room, being only about $12 a piece. And it worked great for about 6 years before they all started dying out. So now I'm left with all over the fish room mismatched lights, tanks that aren't lit, and it's just messy. And my biggest goal for this new year is to really address the lighting issue in order to have it have a uniform, well-lit, clean, crisp appearance. And that project, I'm hoping, will be starting in the next month, and I have some exciting things to share with you guys about that as soon as I have the final details. Now, there's a bunch of other aquariums down here that are housing fish of mine, but it's not going to be a permanent situation. I have a ton of wild apistos. I have a bunch of catfish around, and tons of various plecos. One of the other goals for the fish room this year is to clean up my air system. I've learned a lot in the 10 years I've been running a fish room, and I know that I can do a way tidier, prettier job than I have done in here right now. So as we enter this new year, I am super excited. I've just told you a few of the projects I have planned. We're going to really improve some of my personal aquariums. I'm going to be doing a fair amount of traveling, which I'll have listed on my website, MsJinx.com. And I plan to go live every Friday, so please make sure you're subscribed and that you have that notification bell on so you don't miss any of those. Now, the thing that I'm probably most excited about for this upcoming year is my summer tubbing series. And that's because if you guys have been here for a bit, you know that for my birthday this year, my husband got me a greenhouse, and it is a nice greenhouse. And right now, it's just housing all my carnivorous plants, which are in their dormancy phase. But starting mid-February to early March, we're gonna get started out there, and I have more than doubled the capacity of the bins where I breed fish each year. So I'm really excited to do a bunch of builds out there and show you guys what I'm doing and breed a ton of fish. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of those videos. I hope all of you had a safe and happy new year. Make sure you stop by my Instagram and my Facebook, as well as my website, MsJinx.com, where you can find my upcoming speaking engagements, my current stock list, and information on all things nano. I almost forgot about Sid Fishes. If you guys remember correctly, he was a surrender from a customer of mine that I put upstairs in my living room in the 5-gallon spec. And you can see that the algae is completely under control now and everything's growing in really well. And Sid is certainly sassy. You guys did a great job picking his name.